Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with our weekly series of shirim on the Ramchal's Adir BaMarom. And in this week's shir, which is the 60th shir in the series, which will Be'ezras Hashem continue until the end of the Sefer, or Ad Vias Goyel, which will hopefully happen before that. But we're diving deeper into the element that the Ramchal opened up for us last week, which is the secret of the beginning and the end, the Hachana and the Tachlis, the Zachar and the Nekeva, the 6 days of the week, and Shabbos, the effort that ultimately leads towards the conclusion of effort. And the Ramchal stipulates that this is the model in which we can see the entirety of existence. The 6,000 millennia represent the 6 days of the week, represent the masculine impulse to express itself in different productive ways. And all of that is ultimately leading up to the secret of Shabbos, which is the secret of the Nekeva, which is the secret of the feminine quality of receptivity, which does not need to seek out to build anything, but rather receives that which it is given, and it builds from within that to reveal that which has always been present. And that's the secret of the Vav Ktsavos, the Chesed Gvur Tferes, Netzach Hod and Yesod, that's mechaber itself with the Malchus. And the Ramchal says that the world of Yigia is associated with the masculine impulse of extension outwards, and the world of Menucha, or the Sof, is going to be related to the secret of Geula, to the secret of Menucha, to the secret of everything being revealed at once. This, the Ramchal says, is the secret of the beginning and the end. The beginning is the illumination of the infinite light, which is pure menucha, and then there's a descent down into the need for activity and participation and processing and engagement and refinement, and then ultimately we'll return back to the end point, which is the full shleimus of the achron, of the sof, which is the place of menucha muchletes. This three-part breakdown of existence, the beginning, the middle, and the end, the rashis, the emsa, and the achris, is the frame of every moment and the entirety of our lives in this existence. That we are wedged between the beginning and the end. The beginning is good, and the end will be even better than the beginning. The problem is that we find ourselves stuck in the middle, and in the emsa, in the in-between, where the hashkacha ha'elyona, and where the chok hatov lehetiv, and there are the yichud b'metzias and the yichud b'shlita, God's unity within existence and God's unity within governance, is not revealed to our eyes. And we live within the territory where the Sitra Achra and concealment and all of the klipos, they seem to have some standalone quality to themselves. What the Ramchal and all of the tzaddikim are perpetually teaching us is that we must hold ourselves back from judging the situation based on how it looks in the middle, and instead we have to refer back to the beginning and our hopes towards the end, because in the beginning there's pure unity. In the end, there's going to be pure unity. The secret of the middle is the territory in which we get to be patient enough and cultivate faith and cultivate Mesiras Nefesh and Yigia and Ahava and Yiras Hashem, where we can find HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the Tzimtzum itself, within the concealment itself. Why? Because this is what Hashem wanted from us. Why did Hashem want this from us? In the end of the day, we don't know. What the Ramchal is masbir is that it's because Hashem wants us to earn through our own volitional processing and become ourselves through the effort of ourselves, which reveals a deeper level of unity because it brings us in contact with a deeper level of concealment. And in accordance with the levels of concealment that we experience in the middle period prior to the revelation of the end, which brings us back to the beginning, so too is going to be the enormity of the revelation of that Hashem is also found in the middle. That's the secret that the Ramchal says all the time, Samcheinu ki anisanu, that we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to gladden us like the days of our affliction. What that means is that Hashem, allow me to reach back into those moments of affliction that feel distant from the light of the beginning and the light of the end, and allow me to see them with the lens of unity. Allow me to see the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity, the beginning and the end that's found in the middle itself. And that's the secret of Geula. And the Ramchal is going to be explaining to us now how ultimately, even though we operate with a typical hierarchical system where the masculine is higher than the feminine, where the productive drive is far more significant than the drive towards calmness, nevertheless, that's only from the perspective of the middle. But from the perspective of the end, all things are ascending back to Malchus. All things are ascending back to that feminine property of the willingness to sit and abide and be what it is without the need to be more than it is. And in that menucha muchletes, there's going to be a secret of Eishes Chayil Ateres by Spaila, that the arc of history is ultimately going from that masculine impulse towards that feminine principle, all the while creating this hierarchical imbalance where the productivity of that masculine impulse is higher and above and judged more favorably than that feminine capacity of receptivity and abiding within itself and modesty, etc. And obviously, these are not gendered roles, these are parts within each and every person. In the future, there's going to be a transvaluation of an aliyah samalchus, where that which seems to be the lowest and that which appears to have been that point of departure away from activity is in truth going to be revealed to have been the purpose of all things. That secret of menucha l'chayei olamim, that secret of eishes chayla teres baila. And the Ramchal is not bringing us into the details as to how this works or the names that this is associated with or the partsufim that this shift or this reorientation where the feminine ascends above the masculine and that the gvura is going to be shown to be higher than the chesed and that the tzimtzum is going to be shown to be higher than the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu because of the potency that it allows. So we're not going to go into the details, but suffice it to say that the Ramchal is illuminating for us a path into the deepest secret of all, which is the secret of Malchus to Ein Sof, and how Malchus is ultimately the only thing that we have access to and the only thing that we're returning back to. The reason for this, as we've explained already, is that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mitzamsim himself, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did was he revealed the Halal. And what that Halal is ultimately a Malchus. All Malchus is the preparation for externalization. It's no longer an active principle. It simply is what it is in its revelation itself. And in its bareness and the revelation of what its shape is, that's the secret of the Giloy of Malchus. Malchus is always the end of the higher level and the beginning of the lower level. So when it comes to speaking about what we grasp in relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the loftiest place that the Arizal brings us into contact with is something referred to as Malchus de Ein Sof, the potentiation towards limitation that existed prior to even the possibility of differentiation, but it was the burgeoning possibility, that secret desire that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to reveal himself to the world so that the world can crown him as king. That Ein Melech B'lo Am, every other sphera, so to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have done on his own. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have revealed Chachma on his own, Bina on his own, Das on his own, Chesed, Gvur, Tveres, Netzach, Hod, Yisod. All of those things can be revealed on their own without anything other than them. There's no need for separation. But Malchus, to be a Melech, by dint of the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu determined that there's this rule called Ein Melech B'lo Am, so therefore in order for Malchus to reveal itself, there needs to be something that can receive it. And therefore it's Malchus to Ein Sof Kavyachol that begins to be the point of the awakening of this desire, this hunger towards revelation, Vahi Ra'av Ba'aretz. That Aretz is Malchus to Ein Sof, and there's a desire to be seen and to be revealed. And that becomes the initial movement out of the infinite into finite reality. And this Malchus to Ein Sof Kavyachol, this highest form of Malchus, which is nothingness revealed, which is simply the Ani Hashem Elokechem being revealed, that is going to be the secret point at which existence begins to unfold. So Zok Tehilad Ramchal, because the Ramchal said before, he says this secret of Zer Anpin and Malchus is very much like the secret of life and death. That life is this process and this 6 days of the week and the six-pronged process of doing and fixing and changing and all of the changing colors. And Malchus is Menucha, and that's why when a person passes away, it says Noach Nafshe, that's the Menucha L'chayei olamim. But now the Ramchal is asking, he says, V'al yekshe she'em lo yichet adam lo hayamisa. So it seems that it's only as a result of the Chet of the Eitz Hadas where we descend down into the territory of death, which is an encounter with Malchus in her concealment. It seems that that's the only way that we're going to benefit the Menucha that comes with Malchus. It seems to be dependent upon the post-traumatic symptoms of post-Chet Eitz Hadas. So that's what the Ramchal is asking. He's saying, you're telling me that all of this benefit of the end of the Menucha of Malchus, of that feminine principle that comes about with death, that's only the result of the Chet of Adam Arishon, but if we didn't sin, then there wouldn't have been death and there would have been no access to Malchus. And now the Ramchal is going to stress that not only is Malchus something that happens after the fall, but Malchus was already prepared to be the fundamental message of the entirety of existence, and that the fall and that the descent is only something there to bring it out. That the truth of all things is the secret of the Malchus and Menucha. Zakter Ramchal, Kize Emes, it's true that death and the Chet of the Eitz Hadas brings a person into contact in the immediate sense with that notion of Noach Nafshe, with Menucha. Aval gam ha'hanhaga hazo saisa kayamas besod hachana v'menucha b'li misa. That in truth, this principle of hachana, preparation, and menucha, the culmination and the calm that comes after the culmination, that would have been true whether or not there would have been misa. It would have been revealed in a far easier way. because this is the guiding principle behind all things. V'hadavar tzarich biur gadol v'lo eitza ata me'inyani. And in spite of the fact that this needs a ton of explanation, says the Ramchal, I want to stay in the lane and I don't want to leave the matter under discussion. Amnan alzeh inyan ne'emar. But suffice it to say that with regards to this, the pasuk says, Eishes chayil ataras baila. That Eishes chayil, that the woman of valor is going to be the crown of her husband, which is the paradox of all paradoxes, because the husband, theoretically, the masculine impulse, is higher and above that feminine principle. But over here we say, Adir ipchem mistabrav, and hapechu asher yishlutu ayudim hema b'seinayim, that Malchus itself, the feminine principle, is oila al rosh zer anpin, and it reveals itself to be the crown of the husband. The Amru Chazal, and Chazal have already pointed out, Ba'ala nitater ba, v'hi lo nitatara ba'ala, that her husband is going to be wearing the crown of her, and she is not going to be wearing the crown of her husband, meaning that there's going to be an overturning of the hierarchical principles between masculine and the feminine principle of concealment is going to ascend and become the crown of the masculine principle of revelation, and not the other way around. V'zeh sod gadol ma'od, and this is a very, very big secret. Ki be'emes b'moisachol u'shlitas hazah b'sod havak. You're right that when we look at the 6 days of the week, when we look at the 6 millennia of existence prior to the full culmination, prior to the emergence of Mashiach Tzidkenu, Zer Anpin, the masculine tendency to impose and do and accomplish, that is the guiding principle. Va'az ne'emar sheishes yamim ta'avod, and there the principle is that for the 6 days of the week you shall toil and you shall work, because that's the avoda of trying to accomplish, trying to do. Ach biyom hashabbos shemagia shlitas hanukva yesh hamenucha, but in spite of the fact that Malchus is below Zer Anpin, when Shabbos comes, which is the lowest day of the week, it also represents the highest day of the week because it's an entrance into the Nukva, it's an entrance into the secret of Menucha. Aval gam haza ola ima, v'hu atzmo makabel teisefes gadol. But don't think that, oh, when Malchus ascends, now Zer Anpin is going to lose out on its valence, on its proper role. No, the ascendancy of Malchus is then to give more koach to Zer Anpin for the incoming week, where we now can look, and in spite of the fact that it's the incoming week, we can still say Hayom Yom Rishon Shabbos, that there's a menucha within the avoda now. But nevertheless, all menucha is always there to lead to more avoda. And every Shabbos is there to give us new koach for the incoming week, so that the week, in the beginning of the week, there's the 6 days, which appear to be the highest level of masculine productivity. Then we enter into Shabbos, which is the feminine principle of calmness and illumination that ascends itself over and above Zer Anpin. But that ascent is only there to prepare for a furthering of the ascent of Zer Anpin, which is now going to grow even more levels. This is what we say, that there's the sun and the moon, they were equal, and then the moon diminishes itself, Malchus goes down, and it gets stuck in concealment, and ultimately we're told that the moon is going to return back to the original light of the sun, and it's going to show itself to be equal again. This and that are going to share the same crown. Shnei malachim b'keser echad. But what the pasuk says and what Chazal tell us is that when Malchus ascends and when the Levana fulfills her shape once again, that the light of the sun is going to be illuminated even sevenfold more than the moon itself, because in the end of the day, Zer Anpin is always the tachlis, Chachma is always the tachlis. Even though Bina looks powerful, Bina is only there to awaken a deeper form of Chachma. Malchus is only there to awaken a deeper form of Zer Anpin. The Menucha is only there to awaken the process in a more refined way. Aval kol zman she'Zer Anpin poel b'sod yemei hachol, hi eino oile. As long as Zer Anpin is in charge, Malchus can't ascend, because Zer Anpin is stuck in its conception, so to say, that the masculine principle is the most essential and the feminine quality has to be concealed. When the feminine quality is revealed to be the essence, it also gives room to the masculine quality as well. It's not a jealous koach. As long as it's the 6 days of the week, so to say, the 6 millennia prior to redemption, so Zer Anpin is poel, and Malchus has no ascendancy. Ki adarabba b'chol hizman habirur v'zem mipnei shelo higia el ha'achris she'alav mages kol ha'ma'oros. Nowadays, during the week, we don't have a space for Malchus. We don't have the ability to see Malchus in her ascendancy, because the 6 days of the week nowadays, prior to the redemption, prior to the end that we're hoping to arrive at, which reveals how there's in fact no effort whatsoever, prior to the emergence of the end, that effort and laborious process of the 6 days of the week stands in stark opposition to the menucha of Malchus, and that's because we haven't yet reached the end. Aval kivan shehigiu, but when we reach the acharis, kulam oilam aliyos gadolos, everything, Malchus is going to ascend higher and higher. Malchus is going to ascend, v'ba'ala nit'ayarba, and Malchus is going to reveal itself to be higher than Zer Anpin, and the feminine principle of Menucha is going to reveal itself to be a far more potent spiritual experience than the process of effort. V'zeso tov achris davar merishiso, and this is the secret, is that the end is going to be far better than what the beginning is, because the end is going to be the Malchus Amiti, which is going to be the ascent into a place of Menucha. V'chein tov yom hamavis mion holado, as the pasuk says that the day of departure is greater than the day of arrival, because the departure is an entrance into Malchus itself, into that place of Menucha l'chayol olamim. Ki letzadikim kachu. This is what it's like for the tzadikim. Shemagiyim ala Menucha, when the tzadikim go through their peulos, go through the processes, go through the shifts and the changes, but with their eye on the goal of coming to a place of the Menucha and the Nachla, which is the secret of Malchus. As kol b'chinoseihem oilim b'sayid ha-Menucha hazos. Every part of their process, every part of the effort, every part of the struggle, all gets contained and revealed to have been nothing but an extension of Malchus. V'havein heitiv, and we have to understand this very well, because in spite of the fact that we're not there yet, we have the ability to taste it. We have the ability to taste the ascendancy and the overturning of the hierarchy, and own the fact that sometimes hidden within the Menucha and the concealment and the tzniusa and the sitting and the calmness, it's going to be far more revelatory of the true direction that we want to go in Avodas Hashem than the frenzied desire to accomplish, which is rooted in the 6 days of the week and the parts of Zer Anpin. That's why we have to understand this very well. This is not just true within the psychology of self, within the dynamism of process, but this is true for the entirety of existence. Nowadays, Shabbos is just a microdosing of the ultimate Shabbos that is going to arrive, and therefore we're still stuck within that productivity mindset that sees Zer Anpin as the fundamental motivating factor, which is why we're driven towards distraction and we're trying to do, and try and accomplish. In the future, there's going to be mamish and manucha muchletas. That doesn't mean it's going to be the end of process. Adrabah, it's going to be the emergence of new, unfathomably deep and perpetually ascending processes, but they're now going to be by way of menucha. It's going to be kedushasi l'malam kedushasechem, aliyos ein kates, but it's not going to be from the perspective of needing to be productive. It's going to be within the perspective of malchuscha malchus kol olamim v'kedushasi l'malam kedushasechem, and the perpetual need to be oila michayil el chayil, but it's going to be from a lens of menucha itself. V'shayrish ha'inyan hazeh hu sod gadol v'niskav ma'od, and the relationship between this process of Zer Anpin and Bina and Malchus, this is rooted fundamentally in the Shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Shem Ma, the Shem Ban, and the Shem Ban that's going to be rooted in the Shem Sag, which is ultimately revealing how Malchus is really rooted in Bina, which is the source of Zer Anpin. And even though Malchus looks like it's lower than Zer Anpin, when it reveals that it's fundamentally rooted in the source of Zer Anpin, there's V'nahapechu and it's Megala, that Malchus is the highest secret in the world. V'ha'inyan hazeh tavinu lahalan, and we're going to understand this a little bit as we go on a little bit further. Besod Pnei hachayos, ki pneiim pnei adam gimel panim acherim mitchaber malayim, and the secret of the four faces on the chariot, because ultimately there are the four faces of the Arya, the Kruv, and the Nesher. Then there's the Adam, and even though the Adam is the lowest one, and even though the Adam is just Malchus, and even though the Adam is simply the receptacle that receives all of these luminous kochos from above, nevertheless it's the Malchus which is the Ataras Baila. Without the receptacle, without the concealment, without the element of Malchus, there would be no revelation, and therefore there's this principle that in the end, that which appears to be lowest and that which is most despised is in truth going to be revealed to have been the site of the true actualization. The Evan Maso Abanim Haislerish Pina. Zok the Helig Ramchal. The ha'inyan da, where does this come from? Ki anu oimim shaha'elamus nivra'u b'malchus de'ein sof. We said already that the emergence of the worlds and the principles of the tzimtzum and the chalal panui writ large and seen in one fell swoop is described as the malchus de'ein sof, the quality of malchus and the emergent principle from within the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol. Ube'emes hadavar hazeh kasher lahavino. How could it be that we have this lashon of malchus de'ein sof that the Arizal brings in Shar Mem Beis, even though he says Kavyachol? How could it be that we're talking about Sfiros in the Or Ein Sof? We know that Or Ein Sof Yisparach Shemo, is unified in all manners of unification and simple in all forms of simplicity. And the notion of Sfiros and Misparim is already the emergence of complication and multiplicity. So how could it possibly be? How could it be that we have a Malchus De'ein Sof? So the secret is that Malchus De'ein Sof is not a real thing. It's a Mitzvah She'ena b'Mitzvah. It's the emergent principle of the possibility of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being Mitzamsim himself. It's a secret of the potential towards limitation that exists within the unlimited itself, so to say. Acha emesu, ki b'vadai Ein Sof yefshar lahazkir Sfiros. By Ein Sof avada, there's no possibility of speaking about Sfiros. There's no concealment, there's no measure, there's no limitation. Raka inyan hu sheka asher nistalik ha'Ein Sof min ha'chalal, az hu chanach Chalal hazeh b'sod Esther Sfiros. The secret is that once HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzamsim himself, which allowed for the beginning of the emergence of creation, in this Chalal, it was the beginning of the possibility of creation. And this Chalal itself, like we said about the Rishimu, is the emergence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's possibility of constricting himself. And so this emergence of the Halal is the Malchus Dein Sof that's Miskala. But the Halal emerged with the 10 potential kochos. The Halal could be revealed, Keser, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Gvur, Tveres, Netzach, Hod, Yesoid, Malchus. Hashem could have revealed himself in this world in any way whatsoever, because Hashem is full in all matters of fullness. And he could have revealed himself in any which way. But v'ha'in sof keshabaka hachalal v'nichnas bo as nishtava lechalal shabo shu nichnas. Once that halal is there, Hakadosh Baruch Hu re-entering into the halal, that infinite light of Hakadosh Baruch Hu entering into the halal should theoretically bring back the full potency of all of the infinitude, which would nullify the halal again. But v'hine be'emes hayayachal lahayir ha'ara shav l'chol b'chinos hachalal. Meaning to say, Hakadosh Baruch Hu could have revealed himself back into the halal in any which way that he wanted to, with any of those 10 kochos which become the potentiation of the spheros. Perush Esser Sphira Shabo. Now that there's a constriction, there's the emergence of the 10 pathways in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu could reveal himself, and now we have a receptacle, which is the Halal, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have chosen to reveal himself in any which way. It could be a full devotion of Chesed, or Gvura, or Tiferes, etc., etc. But velo here kach ele b'chele kaor hamagia el malchus sheb'chalal. All HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed himself to reveal himself as is Malchus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after the Tzimtzum, returns back b'koyach hachisaron. He's no longer revealing himself in his full potency. There's a constriction. The Tesviros Elyonos, so to say, are being held back, and all that's being revealed is the Malchus itself. And therefore, we talk only in Malchus Dein Sof. V'zeha or hishlim ba'ad kol halal. And this Malchus Dein Sof is that which is going to take shape throughout the entirety of the Halal. V'inyan hu kamoy nukva da'ak shem Malchus shalanasa atik ba'atzilus. Just as we see by Adam Kadmon, that the Malchus of Adam Kadmon, which is the Olam HaAkudim, becomes the Roish and the Atik of Olam HaAtzilus, that the lowest level of the higher level becomes the highest level of the lower level. And so too here in the Halal, that all we're seeing is the Nekuda of Malchus. Kach bechinos Malchus levad he shenichnasa b'chalal umala oso. So too over here, the element of Malchus is the only thing that's re-entering into the Halal, and that's what's going to give it all of its filling. Sod gadol ma'od, and this is a very, very deep secret. But in order to make sure that we're understanding it properly, we're going to say as follows. All of the spheros that could have been emergent, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have revealed himself as a light of chesed at every instant, a light of gevura at any instant, a light of teferes at any instant. It could have been a direct way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself. Instead, it's just the nekuda of Malchus, because that's what Hashem decided to reveal, and all of the other kochos and all of the potencies of Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tveres, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, they all have parts within Malchus itself, because Malchus is Leis Magam Klum. She's just composed of the 10 elements of Malchus from within all of the other spheros. And so all of these chalakim of all of the other ways in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have chosen to reveal himself were maskim to Malchus to reveal only in Malchus Malchus Kol Elamim. Ulefi zeh nimtzu asara mine shlitos. That means to say that every element of the asar spheros that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have revealed himself in and as, which would have taken on the fundamental role in Hashem's revelation in this world, they all agreed to only be revealed through the concealment of Malchus itself, which is the secret of Shlita, which means that within Malchus itself is the 10 potencies of these 10 spheros of Malchus, so to say, which are the 10 forms within Malchus. So Malchus has the ability to run the show in accordance with all of the various impulses inherent from the other spheros. V'hu Shlita sa Malchus. This is the secret of the governance of Malchus. She had kol ha'acheros maskimos aleha. It's not that Malchus is present and nothing else is present. It's that everything has decided to give it over to Malchus, and now Malchus is going to be the motivating factor behind all things. All of the shlita, all of the chesed and the gevura and the tiferes and the netzach hod and yesod and the chachma bina das that engarb themselves within Malchus, this becomes the determinant factor in which the shape of reality and the shape of history unfold. And in truth, if Hashem wanted to run the world by way of chesed, gevura, v'chulei, there would have been different laws and regulations. But now Hashem decided to run the world in accordance to Malchus, which means that we don't know anything other than the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. We don't know why, we don't know how, we don't see the chesed in it, we don't see any of the other midos, but what we do know is that Hashem is Melech. We do know is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is king of this place. And that's what is revealed to us. And we have to understand this very well. All of existence, all of creation is emergent from within the secret of Malchus. Meaning to say, all of the upper 10 spheros, so to say, that existed by way of potential within that potential emergence of space from within the unlimited, which is the Chalal HaPanui, there were all of the forms in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu could reveal himself. But the desire was for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal himself by way of Malchus. And all of these other 9 spheros are expressed within Malchus by way of Hasaga B'derech Shlila. We can't grasp them, we can't determine them because Hashem didn't reveal them to us. But from within Malchus itself, we can say if there's a Malchus the Ein Sof Kavyachol within the Halal, then there must be also all of the other modes of governance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing. That Malchus reveals the potency of all of the other spheros and all of the other potencies with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal himself. That's like the 6 days of the week that starts. So Hashem is revealing himself through Malchus in different ways. But then comes the Pu'ula of Malchus itself, and this is the Tikkun HaAmiti. This is the Malchus HaGenuza Beradla. This is the secret of Eishes Chayla Teres Baila, when all of the unfolding processes from within Malchus, because even the 6 days of the week are Malchus. It's just the Chesed and Malchus, the Gvur and Malchus, the Tferes and Malchus, v'chule. And then Shabbos is the Malchus of Malchus, which is a Hisnotzitzitz of the true Gilui, and the Gilui HaAmiti of the secret of Malchus itself. And this is the secret BaMarom, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world BaMarom, that he created it with the Hey HaTachton, with the Malchus itself, which contains all other partsufim within it. Nimtza lefi sheshleimus hakol hu hasof. It turns out that the perfection and the shleimus of all things is going to come about at the end. V'shleimus hazachar hu hanakeva, and that the full culmination of that masculine impulse towards productivity is ultimately going to be in its capacity to express itself by way of rest in the menucha hamuchletes. Ach be'emes zehu b'soid vavhe. Like everything we've discussed before, everything that we're talking about now is still just a vavhe, that the hey is the halal and the vav is the kav that comes back down, and the vav, which appears to be the 6 days of the week and the need to operate in ways of functionality, is ultimately just going to be there to connect with the hey, which is the secret of Malchus. Shu shorish lahanhaga oilam hazeh. That's the vav hey. And like we already said, vihine gam bev yud hey nimsa zeha'inyan. Anything that we talk about by vav hey is going to be found in yud k, because the yud k that we have access to is not the true yud k, but it's only the yud k that is shaykhs to the vav k. Avalu mitzad vav k levad. Aval mitzad atzmam, but from the perspective of themselves, lo yesh zeh. There's no process of menucha. Ki adrabahim nostam hanhaga shav below chiluk. When it comes to the yud k, it's not operating in the lens of malchus. It's only when the yud k is shown through malchus that we begin to see these shifts. The only shift, the only particularization of the yud k is only when it's shown through and dragged through the vessels of vav k. But the true yud k, which we've discussed already, which was concealed at the time of the tzimtzum, so that already represents the hanhaga that's going to be la'asilavu, that's without any chilukim between dachar v'nukva. No masculine, no feminine, no shemesh, no levana, everything is unified and revealed to be one and the same. That's the secret of Yud K, and that Yihyeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, like we said, which is going to be revealed ba'achris hayamim. In the future, there's going to be pure equality. There's going to be shavisi, shivayon. The or, the darkness, the zachar, the nekeva, they're all going to be kolul within one fell swoop of unity. Nowadays, we operate in accordance with the shifting between masculine and feminine, between hashpa'a and kabbalah, between expression and receptivity. And therefore, the yud k, as it gets schlepped down into the vav k, in accordance with this worldly orientation prior to the emergence of the future, which is the yud k, which is the true unification of Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, we're always going to be operating within this binary process of expression and receptivity. Nimsa lefizeh. Heyos hanhaga ha'olam besoid shirusa v'siyuma besoid vavhe. It turns out then that the entirety of existence, from the highest point to the lowest point, is all contained within the two-pronged process of the beginning and the end. And the middle is just the extension between the two of them prior to the revelation of their unity. This is the secret of vavhe. V'zaha inyan lo niskayim b'makomo ba'atzmiut. And this is not the essential quality of how things are always going to be. This is just the way that they appear for now. Ad shehigia ha'or lebechinas zun, and then the light of Yud K gets schlepped down into Zun. V'sham na'asu kol advarim asher na'asu b'sayt hashvira. And then, as a result of the tzimtzum and the shvira and the lights of chachma and bina that are mashpia lamata, they emerge into this worldly reality. So even the highest levels are going to be seen through the split of zachar and nekeva in order to arrange for the hanhaga according to the rules and the regulations of how it should run in this world. Laha'amid ha'hanhaga azois lefi achukim hatzrichim ba. Ba'ashlim l'cha ha'inyan shehetchalti, says the Ramchal. I'm now going to complete the matter that I began with, which is the secret of the Merkava, which was hinted to above, which is that even though there's Aryeh, Shor, and Nesher on the Kisei Kavod, which are Chesed, Gevura, Teferes, which represent the highest levels, and the Pnei Ha'adam is going to be Malchus. Nevertheless, even though it's lower, it's going to show itself to be higher because it's really specifically within the Kli that we have the ability to uncover the true potency of the Oros themselves. Ki Pnei Adam hu mitzad Malchus, the Ben Adam is lower than these higher things, but nevertheless, it's the thing, v'hi hamalchus megala hagimel panim ha'achirim b'soid chesed gvur tferes, just like David HaMelech, who's lower than the Avos Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He's the Regel HaRavi to the Merkava, but ultimately he's the one who reveals their lights in the most potent way. V'hu mamish inyan eishes chayla teres baila shehizkarti, the ascendancy of the human being down here in the lower realms, above and beyond the celestial realms, is the same ascendancy of the feminine quality of concealment over and above the masculine tendency towards expression. Malchus is Nishmas Yisrael. That which is lower is in truth going to be revealed to be the site in which the highest thing imaginable is going to be revealed. Then according to this orientation, the nekeva, the privation, the concealment, the tzimtzum, the shvira, the darkness, all of those elements, the gvuros, all of those moments of concealment are in truth going to be revealed to be higher than the moments of revelation associated with the zachar. This is the secret of tzadikim yoishvim ve'itrei sehem bereshehem, that the tzadikim are going to sit la'asad lavo, and bina is going to be naskala within their minds, and it's going to be the atara beroisham, it's going to be the eishes chayla teres baila sitting upon their heads, where we get to sit in a place of menuchas emesh atarot seba, in a place of emuna, in a place of bittul muchletes, without the need to even believe that we have to go out and do anything. Shuazman higiyam el hamenucha, that's going to be the illumination of true menucha, meaning that's where we're going to even without the yerida into the death of the chet of the Yitzadas. And we have to understand this very, very well. But something that we have to know, says Rabbeinu Ramchal, that something did happen. That as a result of the chet of the Yitzadas, this malchus that is in truth going to be the loftiest thing, and it's going to eventually reveal how higher and higher Zer Anpin can grow as well. This malchus, this feminine privation, this bitul muchletes, this recognition that everything is fine and that I don't have to do anything in the end of the day, that ratzon l'kabel amanas l'kabel, that bitul muchletet that says Rabbeinu Shloim, I know I can't do anything to deserve anything from you, and therefore give me everything. It undergoes a pegam as a result of the chet of the Yetzadas, and it then shifts into this territory of changes where it is diminished and ascending and diminished and ascending, and it descends into the territories of death. This is the secret of the Eitzadas Tovara, which is schlepping Malchus down away from its rightful place into concealment. V'alkein hutzra chagalus, and as a result of that, exile is necessary. Besod hazachar lahachzir lemakomo. The galus is the place that we kind of cultivate this masculine potency of activity and productivity and doing and doing and doing and doing, but that's only so that we can elevate the thing that has fallen back to its rightful place, which is the secret of calmness, which is the secret of Malchus. And when Malchus ascends back to a rightful place, there's going to be the fullness of the name. It's going to be the unification of Havaya and Adnos. It's going to be the secret of Yud Kei Vav Kei being shown through the lens of Aleph Daled Nun Yud, or the innermost principles of the light of unity being revealed from within the vessel of Malchus itself, and the secret of Eishes Chayla Teres Baila. That Malchus is going to be the place. It's only with the Malchus, it's only with the descent down into the territory of congealment and concealment and measure that the light can actually be revealed. That the Tzura cannot be revealed except by way of the Chomer itself, that the Neshama cannot be revealed except by way of the Guf itself. That the Ein Aruch Lacha can only be, the Ein Daime Lacha can only be Niskala al Yedei the Ein Aruch. The light of Ayin Ha'atzmi can only be Niskala al Yidei Ha'ani Ha'atzmi, in the secret of Ani V'Ayin B'Vasachas. V'hu Inyan Ba'achar Sayamim Nachon Yeh Har Beis Hashem B'Reish HaHarim. The Har Beis Hashem, the bias, the Malchus, that which is containing, that which is measured, is going to be B'Rosh HaHarim. The Harim are Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Malchus is going to ascend above that masculine tendency towards expression and the potency of privation and sitting and concealment and being and abiding and Amuna and Bittul and all of these Sha'ashuei Amuna that come about specifically by way of the encounter with Malchus Kol Olamim, that goes all the way down, and also goes all the way up. Malchus itself is going to be the highest of the high. Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then we're going to go from the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei to the name of Yud Kei, which is the secret of Menucha L'Chayei Olamim, which is the secret of the Tikkun Ha'amiti, which is the Hishtavus between the Shnei HaMa'oros HaGadolim, to reveal that ultimately Malchuscha Malchus Kol Olamim, everything is just the revelation of the Malchus, the Ein Sof Kavyachol, the Sha'ashuam Ha'atzmiyim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Megala through the Tzimtzum, so that we can come to receive those Sha'ashuim through the Malchus, through that principle of receptivity, Bittul and Amuna, Be'ezras Hashem.